Tom, g'day. Yeah, so what's the latest on Kirrily?
Yeah, Joe, good afternoon. Well, let's have a look at the system on the satellite. So it's currently only 120 kilometres off the coast, getting really close, but it's very mobile. It's moving towards the coast at 24 kilometres per hour. So based on that path and speed, looks like it will make landfall in only around 4 to say 5 hours time. So we're almost there. Now, I'm just going to show you the radar. Something really interesting about the system, which we kind of just heard about, is where the rainfall is compared to normal. Notice on the radar, most of the rainfall is on the northern side of the system. Now that's the opposite of the pattern you generally see with a cyclone hitting the East Queensland coast. Because the winds spin clockwise around a cyclone, you often have the heaviest rain on the southern side where the winds are onshore, but with this system, that's not quite the case. Now, since 9 a.m, Cali Beach has had 40 millimetres. Townsville's only had 3 millimetres of rain since 9 a.m, so not a massive amount of rainfall. Innisfail 27, but of course the heaviest rain is definitely still to come, Joe.
Yeah, and take us through the hazards through the night.
Yeah, so those hazards are really interesting because of the unusual structure. So here's the forecast rain as the system hits the coast. Again, you'll notice the heaviest rain there, it's all sitting on the northern side. So you're looking at roughly sort of anywhere from Townsville to the north. That's where you're more likely to have the flash flooding along with the river flooding from the sort of 1 to 300 millimetres on average. We'll probably pick up through that area over the next 24 hours. However, while the heaviest rain is atypical, you're still looking at the strongest winds occurring near the centre of the system. So destructive gusts up to 170 kilometres per hour in the vicinity of the eye near Townsville. Now at that speed, you're looking at property damage, power lines coming down, so power outages, and fairly significant damage to vegetation, including crops. The other threat is the storm surge. Now, the storm surge will be, as you would expect, on the southern side where the winds are onshore. So the storm surge, which is where the large waves push up and cause coastal flooding, that's from Townsville down to Mackay. Let's have a look at the cyclone warning. If you're in the cyclone warning, it just means there's a risk of damaging gusts over 90 kilometres per hour at some point in the next 24 hours. So that goes down from Serena all the way up to about Innisfail and then inland to Charters Towers. But of course, the worst impacts will be closer to the eye, Joe.
And what's the path looking like after tomorrow?
The good news, it's nothing like Jasper, which stalled for about 5 days, and that's why we saw record flooding. So this system will be on the move. By the time we wake up on Friday morning, the heavy rain's already eased from the coast, but heavy rain spreading all through to the northwest part of Queensland. Again, note, generally the heaviest rain is north of the system as opposed to on the southern side of the eye. So there is a flood watch out for all these rivers through that northwest corner of Queensland. There's also a severe weather warning in place for flash flooding for these areas. Could get a few storms developing. Under storms, potentially you're looking at 250 millimetres of rain in just a 6-hour period, even going into tomorrow. Now, what's perhaps even more interesting of what happens after tomorrow, most of the modelling now has the system continuing to move towards the west. Now, what we're seeing here, that heavy rain, that's basically the position of ex-tropical cyclone Kirrily. By the time we get to next week, it's even traversed the entire country, sitting near the north coast of Western Australia. So it'd be very interesting, Joe, to watch that over the next week.
And any potential for it to reform into a cyclone out in the Indian Ocean?
Definitely if it moves off the coast. Some of the modelling keeps it just inland, in which case it would not re-intensify. Now, look, it's a long way out, and as we've seen over the past few days even, there's been some huge changes in the forecast path. But if it does move off the coast, yes, there's every chance it could redevelop.
And just interesting to see with your track map over the inland areas as well. It looks like it's even going to be a Category 2 when it hits Charters Towers, which is a community which wouldn't have seen winds like that in a very long time. Yeah,
very rare. I mean, tropical cyclones, they weaken pretty rapidly when they hit the coast, but because this one's moving quickly, it means it'll get to Charters Towers. It won't take long. It'll only take a few hours, really, after it makes landfall to move inland, by which case it will be weakening, but still potentially bringing destructive winds.
Okay, good stuff. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks.